The Seawise Giant. The Seawise Giant is the longest and heaviest self-propelled ship ever built. A single-hull crude oil tanker measuring 458.45 meters from bow to stern, carrying 4.1 million barrels of crude oil across 46 internal tanks. It sat so deep in the water at full load with a draft of 24.6 meters that it was physically barred from the English Channel, the Suez Canal, and the Panama Canal simultaneously, and spent its operational life routing around the southern tip of Africa because there was no alternative. At full speed, it required 9 kilometers of open water to stop. Its 230-ton rudder required dedicated hydraulic systems simply to turn. In 1981, an 81-meter midsection was spliced into the existing hull through a process called jumboization, adding 150,000 tons of cargo capacity and producing the vessel that would hold every size record in maritime history. In May 1988, Iraqi jets attacked it with parachute bombs while it was anchored in the Strait of Hormuz, setting it ablaze and sinking it in shallow water. Norwegian shipowner Jorgen Jarre purchased the wreck, refloated it, and spent $60 million and 3,700 tons of new steel restoring it to service by 1991. The Prelude FLNG. The Prelude FLNG is the largest floating object ever constructed, a 488-meter platform displacing 600,000 metric tons when fully loaded, permanently moored 475 kilometers off the northwest coast of Australia. It has no propulsion system and was towed to its operating location after construction in South Korea. Its function is to liquefy natural gas at the point of extraction rather than piping it hundreds of kilometers to a plant on shore. The core mechanism is cryogenic cooling that reduces natural gas to minus 162 degrees Celsius, shrinking its volume by a factor of 600. 16 mooring piles, each 65 meters long, connect the structure to the seabed through an internal turret that allows the entire platform to rotate 360 degrees in response to wind and current during the Category 5 cyclones that regularly cross the region. Production capacity is 3.6 million tons of LNG per year. Since beginning production in 2019, it has experienced multiple safety shutdowns, including a complete power failure in December 2021 that required full personnel evacuation and left the plant offline for several months. The MSC Irina. The MSC Irina is the highest capacity container ship ever built, launched in 2023 with room for 24,346 standard 20-foot containers stacked 25 high across a deck 61.3 meters wide. Placed end-to-end, those containers would stretch 145 kilometers. The ship measures 399.9 meters, stopping just under the 400-meter threshold that governs berth compatibility at the world's major terminals, and runs the Asia to Northern Europe trade route between Chinese manufacturing ports and Rotterdam, Antwerp, and Felixstowe. An air lubrication system generates a continuous layer of microbubbles between the hull and the water, cutting hydrodynamic friction by 3 to 4%. On a vessel consuming over 100 tons of fuel per day, that saving is substantial across a full year of operation. The USS Gerald R. Ford. The USS Gerald R. Ford is the largest and most expensive warship ever built, a 333-meter nuclear aircraft carrier displacing 100,000 long tons, commissioned in 2017 at a program cost of $12.8 billion. It carries between 75 and 90 aircraft across a flight deck 78 meters wide, powered by two A-1B nuclear reactors, generating 3 times the electrical output of the previous Nimitz class, and is designed for 50 years of service on a single midlife refueling. Its central innovation is the electromagnetic aircraft launch system, replacing steam piston catapults with a linear induction motor that delivers a smoother launch force, reduces airframe fatigue, and handles a wider range of aircraft weights than steam ever could. The Ford class generates 33% more flight sorties per day than its predecessors, developing the ship and its new technologies simultaneously rather than sequentially produced years of post-commissioning failures. The weapons elevators remained largely non-functional for years, and the launch system broke down repeatedly during sea trials before both eventually reached operational status. The Yamato. The Yamato is the heaviest and most powerfully armed battleship ever constructed, a 72,000-ton warship commissioned by the Imperial Japanese Navy in December 1941, with 9 46-centimeter guns, capable of firing a 1,460-kilogram shell to a range of 42 kilometers. Each of its 3 turrets weighed 2,760 metric tons, more than a fully loaded wartime destroyer, and the armor on those turret faces reached 650 millimeters in thickness. A bulbous bow allowed the 72,000-ton hull to reach 27 knots while consuming 8% less fuel than a conventional hull of equivalent size. Despite this, the vessel spent most of the war inactive because Japan's war economy could not consistently supply the fuel it required. In April 1945, it was sent toward Okinawa with only enough fuel to reach the destination. On 7 April, 386 American carrier-based aircraft intercepted it, striking it with at least 11 torpedoes and 6 bombs before fire reached the forward ammunition magazine. The explosion produced a mushroom cloud rising 6 kilometers, visible from the Japanese coastline. Of 3,332 crew, 276 survived. The SS Great Eastern. The SS Great Eastern held the record for the largest ship in the world for 41 years, from 1858 to 1899. Designed by Isambard Kingdom Brunel and built on the Thames, it measured 211 meters and displaced 18,915 gross tons. At a time when no other ship exceeded 5,000, it combined 2 17-meter paddle wheels, a screw propeller, and 6 masts carrying over 1,600 square meters of sail, and was the first large ship built with a double iron hull, 2 concentric shells separated by a 0.9-meter gap. Commercially, it was a failure. Too large to fill profitably on passenger routes, and too large to use the Suez Canal when it opened in 1869. Its lasting contribution came from an entirely different function. No other ship in existence was large enough to carry 2,500 miles of copper cable. And in 1866, the Great Eastern laid the first permanent transatlantic telegraph cable between Ireland and Newfoundland. The Academic Lomonosov. The Academic Lomonosov is the world's first operational floating nuclear power station, a 144.4-meter vessel permanently moored at the port of Pevek in the Russian Far East. It generates 70 megawatts of electricity and enough thermal energy to supply approximately 100,000 people through Arctic winters, running 2 KLT-40S pressurized water reactors derived from Russia's nuclear icebreaker fleet. It is the northernmost nuclear installation on Earth. Building a conventional plant on the permafrost of Chukotka risked structural failure as the ground shifts with climate change, and fossil fuel delivery to the region is logistically impossible for months each year. Rosatom constructed the plant at a shipyard in St. Petersburg and towed it to its operating location. Construction costs rose from an estimate of $170 million to over $700 million by completion. The vessel entered service in May 2020. The Pioneering Spirit. The Pioneering Spirit is the largest vessel ever built by gross tonnage, and the only ship designed to lift an entire offshore oil platform in a single operation. Built in South Korea for the Swiss contractor Allseas Group at a cost of 2.6 billion euros, it measures 382 meters long and 124 meters wide, with a displacement of 1 million tons when fully ballasted. A 122-meter slot cut into the twin bows allows the vessel to straddle a platform. 8 horizontal lifting beams engage the underside of the topside structure, and the hydraulic system drives each beam upward 2 meters in 9 seconds, while 11,000 tons of ballast water releases from tanks in the bow simultaneously. Maximum single lift capacity is 48,000 tons. A stern-mounted jacket lifting system added in 2021 handles platform support legs of up to 20,000 tons. The traditional decommissioning method required more than 20 individual lifts spread across months. Over 4.5 million tons of platform steel will need to come out of the North Sea alone over the next 4 decades. Zhenghe's treasure ship. Zhenghe's treasure ships are the most debated vessels in the history of shipbuilding. Between 1405 and 1433, Zhenghe commanded 7 voyages across Asia for the Yongle Emperor, leading fleets of over 300 vessels, crewed by nearly 28,000 men. At the center were the Bao Chuan, the treasure ships, whose dimensions remain contested. Ming records compiled in 1739 state the ships were 151 meters long and 61 meters wide, with 4 decks and 9 masts. Most modern scholars place the length closer to 60 to 75 meters, arguing that wooden hulls of 135 meters would flex and fail in heavy seas, and that the larger figure first appears in a novel written more than 150 years after the voyages. Excavation of the Nanjing shipyard produced rudder stocks of 6 to 11 meters, consistent with the smaller estimate. The technology is not in dispute. Watertight internal compartments divided each hull into independent chambers, so a breach flooded only one section, a principle Western navies did not adopt for another 4 centuries. Navigation combined wooden instruments for measuring star altitudes with a 24-direction compass and charts of ocean currents reaching the east coast of Africa. After the final voyage in 1433, the ships were decommissioned and left to rot, and the knowledge required to build them was not preserved.